Before we start, I'd like to thank Clip Studio Paint for sponsoring this video. CSP is one of the most popular drawing programs for digital artists, and it boasts its huge pool of features and assets, varying from custom brushes to 3D models and environment. Fair warning, I've never tried Clip Studio Paint before, so this won't really be a tutorial video. Instead, I just want to focus on drawing and trying it out. It's always fun to imagine your OCs living a different life in a different universe. So today I'll be drawing 6 little Pickle Town characters in 3 different AUs. If you don't know what Little Pickle Town is, it's an animatic miniseries, which you can watch here in the official playlist. At first, I wanted to draw Olivia and Alexa in a werewolf and vampire AU, but I kinda scrapped the idea. I didn't want to design them too elaborately, so I went for something that I think is a bit easier to draw. There are pretty minimal changes in terms of design and hairstyles, and as you'll see, I gave them both fairly simple clothing. I wanted to focus more on just trying to get myself used to Clip Studio Paint, which is also why I drew them close up and with easy poses. There was definitely a learning curve as I wasn't familiar with its symbols, formatting, and features. However, I like their vast options for default brushes. There are a lot of good custom brushes in their asset store, but I settled for a default one. I found it pretty easy to use, which is also why I think I finished the line art a bit faster than how I normally would. I also appreciate that you can put multiple images in the reference window, or the subview in CSP. You can flip through the pages if you have multiple references, which saves a lot of time compared to if you still have to close and then reopen different images. Aside from that, there isn't really much I can say about the technicalities. I didn't experiment much with its other features, since I mainly stuck to how I would usually draw using my previous program. For the details here, I downloaded a brush that's like sparkly diamonds. At first, I struggled with customizing the sizes and particle dispersion, but after I got the hang of it, it definitely did a lot to pull the drawing together and make it more interesting. This one is simpler than the next two illustrations, but I still like how it turned out. I like to imagine that, despite being of opposing races, Olivia and Alexa are secretly best friends, and that Olivia isn't all that angelic. Royalty AU is definitely one of my most favorite AUs when it comes to art, So it's pretty obvious that I'm gonna do it for Monaco and Nikolai. I've read a lot of historical romance manuals and I thought that I want to see Nikolai as a prince while Monaco as a knight. At first, I was thinking of making Monaco a butler or maybe even a commoner, but I thought that it wouldn't be fun designing her clothes if it's too shabby. Honestly, I just want to give them some status gap. Since I'm not really the type to draw weapons, I decided to use the asset store. I had a lot of models to choose from, and most of them are free. Naturally, I had some difficulty posing and navigating the sword, but it's understandable, especially if you're not familiar with 3D models. I haven't really explored much yet, and I'm not sure if there's an easier way to go about it, but I just traced the 3D models to make the line art. While their poses are still pretty simple, I draw them in a half body cut since I wanted to show off their designs. I downloaded a bunch of details like this mini rope from the asset store, and like before, I just traced them. Brushes like these are really convenient to use, especially if you have to add a lot of elaborate details and patterns. It definitely saves up a lot of time compared to if you still have to sketch it up and do it by hand. I was actually having a hard time coloring their clothes, but after I finalized the colors and patterns, especially Nikolai's, I realized that I forgot to record it, so you can see a sudden change in the color scheme. I didn't feel like making a proper background for this one, so I was in a very experimental mode. I used some flowers and just went for it. Even the lighting that I did is something that I wouldn't usually do in my drawings. I used blue and pink where I would usually pick warmer colors like orange and yellow for my lighting. This one reminds me of those tragic romance manhwas, and as much as I want them to end up together, all I can imagine is Monaco hiding her feelings for Nikolai and just pledging her loyalty to him and his future queen. For this last illustration, I was torn between gender swap and high school AU, but I thought that maybe I can do the gender swap on a different video, so I settled for this one. Originally, I was going to make Eo look like the nerdy character while Milo stays as someone that gets into fights often. But that's how Milo is already portrayed in LPT, so I switched up their roles. I actually also wanted to use the 3D model for their poses, but as I've said previously, it's pretty hard to navigate a model if you're not familiar with it. I figured that I'll have a much harder time controlling it than if I just draw it by hand, so I scrapped the idea. However, I do want to try the 3D model next time when drawing more dynamic poses. As you can see, I used a texture for the wall behind Milo and Eo. I know it's not that noticeable, but the thing about texture is that they give that subtle depth to objects. CSP offers a lot of these in their asset store and most of them are free. Also, I used a cloud brush for the background. I don't really know how to draw clouds and I've never bothered learning how to, so it's really helpful. Since I pretty much experimented a lot on Monaco and Nikola, I wanted to go back to how I would usually do my details and lighting. I went for a warmer color like orange and just kept the details to a minimum since I wanted to keep it simple and warm. Out of all the three drawings that I did, this one definitely gives off that LPT vibes. This can be them canonically if they met during their high school days and if their personalities are a little bit different. So here are my final thoughts on Clip Studio Paint. I haven't fully explored CSP yet, but there are a whole lot of features available. I haven't tried animating, but it's definitely something I will check out in the future. However, what I like the most is the default brushes. Even without downloading from the asset store, you will already have a good quality brushes. Whereas in other programs, you'll still have to customize your own or maybe download from the internet. While the features and the overall look can get overwhelming at first, there's something you'll find helpful once you get used to it. Hands down, the asset store is my favorite. You saw that I used it a lot for this video. 3D objects, texture, patterns, it's readily available and most of them are free. Basically, you don't have to go outside of CSP to look for references. I wasn't able to use them here, but I think the 3D model and environments are definitely something artists need, especially if you're making dynamic poses, detailed backgrounds, or just a full-on webtoon. In short, it's really convenient. And that's it! I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments if you guys want to see more of the LPT characters in other AUs. Thank you so much to my patrons for always supporting me behind the scenes. Also, these illustrations will be available in Redbubble, so check that out too.